Well, hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about the ham sandwich theorem. It is Friday, wait a minute, it's
No.
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
February 2024. All right,
There
you
we
can go
go.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's Apple's got fined late last year, and I guess they're getting around to paying the fine right now. But this is kind of an interesting one. Apple is fined $25 million for not hiring American workers.
Is that a
Do you-
crime? I mean,
Well, they were, I don't know.
there must be more
Um, I,
to it than that. I mean,
I put up the link to the Justice Department findings,
yeah, but I mean,
and
I mean, under what's discrimination? Okay, employment discrimination based on citizenship status.
correct.
I'd never heard of such a thing. I never thought of that as a protected class.
I wouldn't have thought so either.
Illegally discriminated in hiring and recruitment against U.S. citizens. Well, everyone in Silicon Valley does this. They hire H-1B visa immigrants because they're cheaper. If this is illegal,
Exactly.
it'll be a revolution in Silicon Valley.
I know. So that's why this is a
But,
news story.
but
This is
I
why I brought it up.
yeah, I think you're right, though. They're supposed to pretend that they need high skills and that there are no Americans with those skills. I think they're supposed to put that on the paper. I think
Yeah, that's
nobody
correct.
believes it, but that's the theoretical justification. So, well, maybe this will reform things. I know the H-1B visa people are pretty much trapped indentured servants. It's kind of a lousy system.
Yeah, yep, that it is. It is.
Well, maybe this will
Um,
change things.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if other companies get hit by this.
Yeah.
But kind of interesting.
Yeah, and starting with the big companies to set an example, I guess.
Well, that's where typically you start, and they've got the deeper pockets, and
Yep.
again, we'll see where this goes.
Mm.
So if you want more information, we got the link there. It's on the website.
Yeah. All right.
Sam, what do you got for us
Well,
today?
I got the one that I thought was most interesting is Scientific American explained the ham sandwich theorem. And this is very interesting and it's very relevant to stuff I've been studying for machine learning. And it is real simple. If you have a ham sandwich, two pieces of bread and a piece of ham, and you drop them on the floor, you can still cut every one of those three things in perfect half with one cut. And this is a general mathematical theorem, and it's actually quite easy to understand. Even if the ham is on the ceiling and the two pieces of bread are on different levels, what you do is you pick two of them and you draw a line through the center, and then you rotate a plane through that line until it cuts the missing thing in half. And the general rule is if you have n objects of any shape and size distributed in an n-dimensional space, you can cut it with an n-1 dimensional hyperplane. And this has enormous implications. It's easy to understand, but one of the enormous implications is that all attempts to stop gerrymandering are kind of completely hosed. Because if the gerrymandering, as you know, is if you have like 51% Republicans in a state, you can make it so that like 9/10 of the seats go to Republicans by cutting it very carefully, making sure that every district has a majority of Republicans except one, where you put all the Democrats, that kind of thing. You can probably not that extreme, but you can cut it a lot. And there are people that say just making the borders simple and not so crooked would help, but you could do it with straight lines. You could cut it and make the proportions anything you want with straight lines. And I think it's relevant to machine learning too, because one of the most common machine learning models is a support vector model. And
Yeah.
support vectors just use a straight line in a high dimensional space to separate things. And this turns out to work for almost every problem.
So Sam, what you're saying is, let's go back to the original
Yeah,
description of the ham sandwich. You
yeah,
have a piece of bread in the attic.
yeah,
You have a piece of bread that's below it in the
yeah,
garage,
yeah.
and you have a piece of ham that's in the kitchen, in
Right,
the refrigerator.
right.
And what you're saying is, even though they're not lined up, they're not stacked on top of each other, I could take a knife and I could cut through all three of those
Right.
in a straight line,
And a plane, following a
in
plane.
a plane.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. And you can always find that plane. And that means the very simple cut can bisect all those objects. And therefore
So,
you could gerrymander your state to shake the red and the blue people and decide what I want to have 60% red in as many districts as possible. And you can do it all with straight lines.
So Sam, I think what you're telling me is you've solved the magic bullet theory from the Kennedy assassination that went through the back of his neck, made a right turn, made a
Well,
left turn, went through
well,
Connolly.
well, those turns are complicated. Those turns kind of break this rule.
Yeah. So you know what the real answer is to that, don't you?
I
The
don't.
magic bullet theory
I don't.
is that Lincoln Town Car that Kennedy was riding in was a specially modified car. So Kennedy sat higher in the car, Connolly sat lower into the left. And so if you use the stock Lincoln car where the passenger is in the front seat, is directly in front of the passenger in the back seat at the same height, the bullet has to make these right left-hand turns. But if you have a parade car, which is what Kennedy was in, he's higher and to the right and Connolly's lower to the left, and then the bullet magically lines up.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And as a tangent to this, years ago, I think about 30 years ago, there was a car that was a Nazi era car that was found. It was a collector's item, sat in somebody's garage in Connecticut for about 30 years, sold to somebody else, and it was finally given to a museum in, let me think, in Quebec, Canada. And as the museum curator looked at it, it was rumored to be Goring's staff car, somebody like that. And he looked at it and he found that no, 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 no. The seat was lowered in the front, raised in the rear. There was a special handle to grab onto. There were these modifications that were made, and it turned out to be one of Hitler's touring cars. And that car is still on display today in the Ottawa what is it? Military Museum, if you'd like to go see it.
All right.
But kind of same thing, you know.
Yeah,
There are things that are explainable, but the ham sandwich is a better one. So
yeah.
that doesn't work with the magic bullet, but it works when it comes to gerrymandering and AI.
Well, there in the world of AI, you deal with curves by just adding more dimensions. That was a trick. So if you have like a third order polynomial, you add
Yeah,
x squared and x cubed as more dimensions, and now it's straight in that space.
I see.
So it's actually
I see
quite
what you're
brilliant.
saying.
So the point is, it's actually almost always easy to structure the problem so a straight line will do the job.
Yeah, yeah, got
And
it.
that's how a lot of
Got it.
machine learning works. That's why people think machines learning think systems are smart, and they are not smart at all. Most of the time, they're just putting a straight line through some points. Now,
Yeah,
maybe we are no smarter than that, but it seems like we're smarter than that.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
question. Maybe we're pretty dumb too. So anyway,
Could be.
let's go back to you.
Yeah, so Wise, I just got an email. I have Wise security cameras, which are inexpensive. They're about $25. They're actually pretty decent
Are they
security cameras.
and their Wi-Fi?
They are Wi-Fi
So people can
only.
interfere with them. Okay, good.
Yeah, so yeah, we talked about that a few episodes again. You could jam those with a Wi-Fi jammer.
Yeah.
But this security breach is more of an interesting one. And it only affected, according to Wise, because this is their release, less than 1% or about 1% of their users. Now, to use the Wise camera, let's be clear on this. You can either use it standalone, where you still have a connection to the internet, it has a memory card, and use an app in your phone to view the images there. Or you can do a subscription service and you get the plus, you get additional features in that. This is only, I believe from what I've read, only referring to the subscription service. And it had to do with a cached set of credentials with Amazon. And what it did was it misaligned people's videos
Thumbnail.
with their account and with their thumbnails.
Yeah.
So for a short duration, I don't know, let's say half a day, people that were clicking on videos were getting other people's videos. This sounds horrible and terrible, but yeah, the chances of somebody getting something that they shouldn't have seen is, I think, very, very remote. And then being able to do something with it.
Yeah, and how many people are actually putting these cameras somewhere really sensitive? You're usually putting them in your garage or the front door or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and besides, this happens with people's emails and everything. Occasionally, why would I think Yahoo or Gmail for a while was accidentally showing people somebody else's emails and stuff. This it's amazing this doesn't happen more often. You have a database with everybody's stuff in it, and your query could, a variety of reasons, go wrong and show you the wrong data.
Yeah. Yeah. You get misaligned somehow. And
Yeah.
unless you have a use case, right? Something to exploit, which most of the time you don't. You just ignore it.
If it's just a transitory mistake, it hardly matters. If you could actually
Yeah.
do it on demand and get into a specific person's account, then you might be able to benefit from it. Yeah.
Different story. Different story. Yeah. So what else do you have, Sam? Or I got one more that's kind of
Go ahead.
related.
Go ahead.
Uh, have you heard of Soro AI? And
Only a little.
Soro, just so you know, is cloud, and I'm not sure what language it's in,
Oh, okay.
but Soro is cloud. So there's Soro AI, which is text to video. So you can, in your AI client, you can type in some text and you can get a video out of
I
that.
think they can all do that now. I think Google added that and OpenAI has that. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
well, Soro apparently has taken this to another level. It's not publicly available last time I looked, but it should be shortly. So we'll see where this is going. We'll have to keep an eye on this one.
well, the obvious immediate application is to make deep fakes of like the president and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's already been done, and that is what's going to happen going forward.
Obviously. Yeah.
And we're going to legislate that, but the problem is, how are you going to legislate it?
Yeah. Yeah. They already went with watermarks, and watermarks are ridiculously easy to overcome.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been saying all along. They keep talking about government regulations for AI, but I don't think they have any clue how to do it yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Yeah, what do you got for
I was
us?
I'm having trouble driving at night, probably because I'm getting old and my vision isn't that good, but also the headlights are really blinding. And I've seen articles about it. And they say this is, in fact, a big problem in America and it's specific to America because they've developed technology in Europe and Asia called ADB, which is intelligent headlights that carefully do not shine the lights in the other cars. They have like a bunch of LEDs, like thousands of them, controlled by a computer. So when it detects a car, it creates an area of darkness around the other car. So you can still see with nice bright lights, but it's not shining right into everybody else's car. And they're illegal in America because they have extreme regulations requiring that it does things that are very difficult. And so they can't make them up to American specs. But in Europe, they're using them. They have pictures of them showing how they'll have bright lights shining around a curve and carefully not hitting the other car. So this sounds great. I would sure like it. What I did was I got like some yellow filters to put on my mirrors so the blinding lights behind me are not as blinding.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, do you know how the technology works?
It detects the car and then it adjusts, then turns off some of those lights. So it has like focus beam or thousands. I mean, it's actually pretty
I
clever.
see.
And
I see.
apparently it works and it's not too expensive, but they can't bring it into America and they're trying hard to change the regulations to let it happen in America. I'd
So
like this.
this would be a headlight that has, say, 50, 25, 50 different LEDs in it,
Or thousands
and
or
or
even more, or
thousands.
even
I
millions.
see.
Yeah.
I see. So it's kind of like a TV screen, if you will, with
Yeah.
really bright LED lights.
Yeah, and I'm
And
imagining it'd be sort of like a
yeah,
fly's eye with a whole bunch of lenses. So each light goes
yeah,
to a specific spot out there, and now you can turn off certain lights. This, by the way, is something I read in a science fiction story called Waldo from the 1950s by Robert Heinlein, where he said he had a guy at a space station and he had lights all around, and the lights would carefully not shine in anybody's eyes. So when more people get in the room, they would get brighter and focused where nobody's looking. He had the same
huh,
idea.
clever,
Yeah,
clever.
yeah,
We'll see where that's going.
yeah. Anyway,
But you're right. I have the same issue too. It's
I've read the
uh
headlights are much brighter than they used to be. And the main thing happens to
yeah,
me is I got a low car, I got a sedan, and a huge truck will just pull up right behind me with blinding bright lights shining right into my car.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
got yellow filters that help a lot.
yeah. Interesting, huh?
Anyway,
Well, we'll see. The other thing that's going on with lights is they're plastic, and the plastic coating over a few years starts to discolor or it gets pitted with sand and gravel, and it deflects the
Hmm.
light beam.
Yeah.
So it's no longer, so you can't see as well. So you use your high beams,
Yeah.
and still you got to get either the plastic resurfaced, repolished, or replaced. So
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, so we got to see what's going on. I'm not sure. This story might be a little old, but Discord. Have you seen what's going on with Discord? That they're forcing users to select usernames, and I didn't quite see why,
I didn't quite. I have
but
a feeling this happened to me on Discord. They used to have a username with a number at the end, and something about it changed. I just hate Discord. I use it when people force me to, reluctantly, so I never remember how it works.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what the reason is, but they're causing this to identify yourself, I guess, or to identify people.
Yeah, I didn't understand it, but I know a ton of people love Discord. You have to join Discord to do this and that, and every time I go in there, it takes forever to open. It has a bunch of updates, and then it's just a confusing mess, and I can't find anything. I don't know why people love it so much, but they really
Yeah,
do.
I don't either. Do you use Slack or Mastodon?
I use Mastodon. Mastodon's easy to use. Slack
Yeah,
is not like Discord. There are all these channels. I only use
yeah.
the only blessing is the only thing I use Slack for is Pulse Security Weekly, and mine is just set to go to that one place. There's like I have connected to like 50 servers, each of which has 50 rooms, so I could never find anything, but I always leave it on the only one I care about. And there's a box in the corner telling me I have 55 private messages from a year ago, which I will never see.
Exactly.
This every time I go to a new social network, I've got 100 messages from people that think they've told me things and they haven't. It's crazy, you know,
Yeah, it's amazing all the different ways we have to communicate with each other, huh?
which means you can't reach anybody.
Exactly, exactly. All right, what else you have for us, Sam? What's next?
Well, this one, people are getting real excited about this one. The European Court of Human Rights has ruled it is illegal for the government to break encryption the way the NSA does, and for that matter, GCHQ. And this would be a victory for civil liberties. So it sounds good. It sounds like it would end the crypto wars. You know, the eternal crypto wars have been going on for at least 50 years, where the FBI and the cops and everybody want to read everybody's email and listen to everybody's phone calls, and the tech people put encryption on it so they can't, and then they try to get a legal right to break through the encryption. And then the NSA tries to poison the encryption and make you use weak methods it can get into. But apparently, this may be over in Europe. So we'll see how this goes, but it sounds very good.
So is this in the EU
Yeah, and
or
therefore
it's
not
in
threatened.
EU?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, as we've been talking about, the Europeans seems to be way ahead in all forms of internet regulation, and whatever happens over there percolates over here a few years later. So
Yeah. Yeah,
maybe it'll end
exactly.
the crypto wars. We'll see.
Huh.
Over here, though, we have the national security letters and all sorts of scary things where the cops can totally get in your stuff. And then we pretend that's not true. Like we banned Huawei because the Chinese government might control their stuff, as if over here the US government doesn't control our companies the same way.
Yeah.
I think it's not quite the
Yeah.
same way, but I think with national security letters, it amounts to pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see, huh? We'll see if this comes over to California and California adopts something like this and it spreads across the country.
That's usually how it goes. Yeah.
That's usually how it goes, isn't it? All
Although,
right.
in a way, you'd have to be going against the NSA and the Patriot Act, and I do not think any state has the right to go against that, but we'll see.
Well, isn't that the case with drugs, though? Marijuana? That's
Well,
still
sure, and
technically,
even though many states have legalized it, it's still illegal federally.
yeah, yeah,
So we have
exactly.
this crazy contradictory system we have over here.
Yeah, yeah, that
It's a lot like
pure,
colleges, you know, where they pass all these rules that make no sense, but once you have tenure, you can just break the rules. That follows the American system.
yeah, yep, yep, that's
All right,
true.
all right.
All right, so I got kind of an off the wall one. If you're
Yeah.
tired of doing tech and you want to make some money and you're a writer, this one kind of caught me off guard. But you know, when you go to the supermarket and then you go to the checkout stand, there are all those romance novels that are there.
No, I haven't
And
seen those in like 20 years. They used to be there.
yeah, I haven't seen them years either. I've never bought one, never been interested. But if you're interested in writing one, it's still over $1 billion business every year.
Well, my ex-wife actually wrote not those things, but she had a book on how to write them. And in fact,
Really?
you write them. There's a book teaching you how to write them, and you write them from formula. It is totally begging for AI. You could totally have AI writing those things, churning them out. And the same thing with porn novels. I don't know if those still sell, but they're just come from a simple formula. You could pretty much just do like replace terms with a list of terms. That whole market could be AI generated. I think the customers would be perfectly happy with that.
Well, is that true with TV shows? They're all a formula too.
Oh, I don't know. I think TV shows, at least the ones I watch, depend very much on the personality and charisma of the actors and the plot that gives them an interesting situation. So I don't think you can have AI generated. I think the actual drama requires like human emotional input.
No, no, but the format of the show is pretty much the same. If you go back to the 50s, 60s, kind of the comedies there,
Yeah.
there's in Seinfeld, I mean, you go over the decades
Well, sure, but
and
the
yeah,
thing that makes them work is the genius of the human input. Like Seinfeld wrote these jokes that were really clever that nobody would think of.
yeah, yeah,
And you got to
yeah.
have that. Otherwise, it's the boring TV show you don't want to watch.
Yeah, but then yeah, yeah. We'll
I don't,
see. But you're right. It's the people that make it unique, and you want to see the people, not necessarily what the show is per
it's
se.
the same thing with podcasts. You're forming like a relationship with the person. You have like an emotional connection to them. That's mostly what people are going for, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. So there's money to be made possibly in your future if you like romance novels.
Also, video games and other games, big business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
well, I got an article I thought it's actually pretty important too. In thecut.com, this woman, Charlotte Cowles, wrote a story explaining how she got scammed for $50,000. And I think it's really important for people to speak out because this is like the dirty secret of our time. Like in previous generations, you had to hide it if you were gay or something. Now everybody has to hide it that they got scammed to say, oh, I'm too smart for that. But security professionals, tech professionals, educated elite get scammed all the time. And she said when she explained how this happened, all her friends talked about how they had like a father that got scammed for $1 million. A ton of people are getting scammed. And people that think I'm immune because I'm smart and I know things, you're not. I mean, I remember I was in religious cults and some of my students say, oh, you can't, you're too smart for that. And I said, that just makes you more vulnerable.
Yeah.
You think you're and so he explains how it happens. And they had a really good scam. They called her and told her somebody broke in your account. They did illegal things with your money. You're on federal charges. I'm the FBI agent that can help you. And you're about to seize all your money and freeze all your bank accounts as the investigation proceeds, but you have one chance to move it into a special account so you can continue to use it to survive while you spend the next year being investigated as a terrorist. And they had several different people call from different agencies and show up with a card and be pretty persuasive about all this until she gave him 50,000 bucks.
So is this the Chicago Reporter?
I'm not sure what town she's in,
Okay.
but
And
she,
yeah. So
but
so this is pretty much an old school, if you will, type of scam.
oh, sure, you could totally done it without the internet. The internet's not much involved. They
Yeah.
all like the main big one now is pig butchering, which is primarily a romance scam. The number one category is romance. Somebody starts flirting with you, then they're going to be your one true love. Then they have this investment opportunity or something. Somehow it's if anybody thinks you wouldn't fall for this, I wouldn't leap to that assumption at all. I mean, this is how the world works. You lead people into something, you influence people.
Yeah, well, that's why people do it, right?
And if you
And
and if you were immune to influence, you'd be basically a psychopath. This is the problem. I mean, we are social animals. You try to get along with people, you try to help people, and you want things, and people offer you things you want. This is a human sociological thing. It's not going to
yeah,
end.
yeah, I don't think
Nobody's
it's going to
immune.
end either. And I think it's getting easier. And I do know that they use scripts that they follow. That's the magic formula that works.
Yeah,
And
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 those are
if
the
you
same
know,
con men have used for centuries.
yeah, yep. And yeah, I always tell my students the best people who've crafted the scam letters go back 250 years, which are the Nigerians. And they did it originally as the Spanish Prince scam.
Ah,
And everybody in Nigeria knows that when they get one of these letters, it's a scam because it's been going on for centuries.
oh,
And now with the internet, you have the world at your feet. You don't have to go out and start emailing or sending mail to people with these scams.
yeah, it's why when I get phone calls and I don't get any, I don't immediately know who it is. Within like the first few seconds, I say, well, you're here to steal my money, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then they either admit that and leave, or they reveal that they're actually a student or something. But there's no point messing around. If anybody's calling me, I figure 90% they're here to steal my money.
yeah, yeah. And I think I brought up a couple episodes ago that the drug lords in south of the border from the United States have now gotten into this because they realize it's much more profitable
And much safer.
and much safer and much less chance of being caught.
Oh yeah. I remember I used to tell this to my students, like I think 2012 was the first year when online bank robbery exceeded face-to-face bank robbery in total dollars per year. And I said, this is better for everybody. It's better for the victims, it's better for the cops, it's better for the crooks. Nobody is running around shooting guns out of cars, getting killed. It's just far superior in every way.
It's kind of like there was a Star Trek episode,
Yeah.
original Star Trek, where there were two planets that were fighting each other. And instead of using guns and weapons, they used computers and they would go into a death chamber. And the Kirk comes along and says, "This is barbaric." And they said, "No, this is civil."
Yeah, yeah. The other one
So,
I often think of is the Organians. Like, I think we did that to Iran. I mean, Iran was building a nuclear bomb, and we came in with a computer virus and turned
yeah,
off their isotope separators like the magic power. Poof, your weapons don't work. And,
yeah,
that's pretty awesome. Anyway,
yeah.
I think you got another one.
I've got one more, and this is an interesting one. I think a couple episodes I brought up that landline phones are going by the wayside
Oh, sure.
in the Bay Area.
I don't think I've
And
seen one anywhere in a decade or more.
well, I'll tell you, I still have one, but it's a VoIP phone through Comcast. But AT&T announced that no more landline phones in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. But it turns out that Gen Z wants landline phones. And so, yeah,
They were
they,
pretty rotten. I mean, they had a higher sound quality, but
yep,
they were pretty damn inconvenient. I remember having this
yep.
long cord and getting it stuck on everything and trying to walk around with the cord and all that garbage.
Or what you did is you got a cordless phone,
Which
not a cell phone, but a cordless phone. And that allowed you to walk around your property a little bit, or at least you didn't have the cord. But that was over Wi-Fi, so sometimes you'd pick up somebody else's telephone call.
but why do young people want those awful things back again?
Well, it's the same reason that they want Polaroid cameras. They're
Those were
going back and
those were
yeah,
also worthless.
I know. And as we've learned after about 25 years, 30 years, the pictures fade.
And they were expensive and you had to I mean, cell phone cameras so much better. It was hard to share with your friends after you took it. What's
So
wrong
it's
with
the
these
old
kids?
days. We're going back to the old days.
When I don't know why you'd have nostalgia for that kind of junk. I mean,
I don't know. And also film cameras,
when I grew up,
35 millimeter.
when I grew up, nobody wanted old stuff. We all wanted the exciting new stuff. Get your new
Exactly.
appliances and everything. We saw the future as where all the cool stuff was going to be.
So I think the way you could look at that is old is new.
Apparently, I think it might even have something to do with sort of a dark pessimism where people don't see us as making progress towards a glorious future anymore. They see us as sort of in decline and the past was better, which is kind of true from a financial point of view. You remember, like the 50s and 60s, you could just get a high school degree and then you could afford a house and be the only breadwinner for your family and everything would be okay. And you totally can't do that anymore.
No, yeah, yeah. So
And
I will give you two use cases. One is when the big apocalypse happens,
Mhm.
and your cell phone doesn't work, the internet doesn't work anymore, your landline will work.
All you have to do
Possibly,
is cut the wire.
possibly,
This is why
possibly.
we went to Starlink in Ukraine. The wireless is the thing that's more likely to work.
Exactly. except you have one person that's in control of that
Well,
and
now you
could
got,
flip the switch.
and well, now it's the Russians, right? They're going to put a nuke in space and take down all the Starlinks,
Yeah, yeah.
apparently. That's what they're screaming about in Congress. I don't know if it's true, but it does sound pretty plausible. And especially since Starlink is a thorn in their side, they could do it.
Yeah, but aren't there 10, 12, 15,000 satellites right now?
Yeah, but all you'd have to do is go explode a bomb in near Earth orbit, and you'd make so much shrapnel that near Earth orbit would be unusable for 500 years, I think. Or near Earth only for 5 years. But you could totally pollute near Earth to make it essentially impossible to use near Earth satellites. This is called the Kessler effect. Caitlin talks about it a lot. It's actually a huge problem now. There is so much junk floating around in orbit that it's very hard to put up a satellite anymore. And your satellite has to have fuel and be under remote control to like dodge the junk. And you could
Hmm.
very easily make more junk. And all you need is like 10 times as much junk, and you'd be effectively impossible to put up any satellites or use any for a while.
And eventually these will decay and come back, burn
The
up in the
near
Earth's orbit.
the Starlink ones decay in only 5 years, but the ones that are up higher stay up for
Oh,
like 10,000 years. And people are actually quite worried about this because the satellites are starting to collide and make more junk. So if it happens enough, it becomes like Saturn's rings, just solid junk, and you can't have any satellites anymore. That's called the Kessler effect, and people are quite worried about it. There's a huge problem saying, how do you get the old satellites down from the higher orbits? And there's no one has found any way to do it yet that is even remotely affordable. You'd need like
yeah,
a special
yeah.
launch to bring down each one for $100 million, which, and there's like 20,000 of them up there. So it's crazy.
Yeah, well, we've done polluting the Earth, so now we got to do the atmosphere or low Earth orbit as well, don't
Yeah,
we?
well, apparently that's, and the Russians have done this before. They've made collisions that created tons of junk that almost hit the ISS. They're irresponsible in space just like they are on Earth. So they could easily just mess up space to get rid of satellites if they don't care, and they might be inclined to.
And so this wouldn't be a nuclear weapon, right?
That's what they're threatening, a nuclear weapon. And you could do it with other weapons too, but that the current discussion is they're planning to put a nuclear satellite killer in space.
So, but why does it have to be nuclear? Is it weight? I mean,
It's a good question. I think
yeah.
you could accomplish the same thing with just missiles from the ground too, I think. It,
Yeah, I would think so too.
yeah, I don't quite
Um,
understand it, and I think nobody does, and that's why maybe it's bogus. I mean, one guy received one of the senators received a classified briefing, or a House congressman, and then just spilled the beans with this scary story, and people are currently running around trying to decide what the truth is.
yeah,
It might
okay.
be like that Chinese balloon, where it's kind of a big stir about nothing.
Yeah, and that turned out, if I'm correct, to be a weather balloon that
No, I think it was a spy
no.
balloon, but they've had them all
Oh,
along, and we've all got satellite spying, and it really isn't a huge big deal. But they were in fact sneaking a spy balloon over the country, say over the nation, if you want to get all upset about that.
and so it got a little off course, or it was intentional, or do we even know?
We don't really know.
Yeah, okay.
We do the same thing. We just do it with satellites.
Yeah, yeah.
If
Well, along the same lines, there's there's technology out there to jam GPS positions, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but
So here we have these precision weapons that we can deploy that are have become defeated, if you will.
well, that's the issue, right? Their vulnerable spot of our weapons is to take down the GPS satellites.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have. Do you have another one for
Nope,
us?
that's it. That's enough for today. And it is Tuesday, so we'll be
It
back on
is
Friday.
Tuesday, so we'll be back on Friday, which is the 23rd,
All
and
right,
we're getting to the end of February.
we are.